It's the Michael Patrick Leahy Show, broadcasting live from downtown Nashville. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
And welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. We are indeed broadcasting live from our studios in downtown Nashville. And you can reach us at Michael P. Leahy. Contact me on Twitter. Or X, formerly Twitter. Sorry about that. Michael P. Leahy. Love to hear from you. Also, you can call us, 615-649-8477, 615-649-8477. And Patrick, our intrepid producer, will take your call. Just tell him your name and where you're from and tell him your topic, right? We want to try to be on point with what we're discussing. But if you got something interesting that's a little bit different, we'll take it, but you got to be clear as to what it is. Also, you can listen to us all across the John Fredericks Radio Network, which is, fantastic and growing. 20 radio stations in Pennsylvania and Georgia and Virginia and Tennessee and who knows where else. Well, I know there's a plan. I think there's going to be more. Also West Virginia. But just stay tuned on all of that. We're very excited about it. And we're delighted to be part of the John Fredericks Radio Network. Okay, so let's talk a little bit. I've got some breaking news. I just want to talk about this. First one, Matt Whitaker. Matt Whitaker was the acting attorney general. This is just a new appointment. He has been named ambassador to NATO. Matt Whitaker is, what I like about Matt, he played tight end at the University of Iowa, a Big Ten school. And, it's tight end university, right? A lot of tight ends come out of Iowa and end up having terrific pro careers. I don't think Matt went pro, but he was a pretty good tight end at the university. He's a tough guy, and that's why he did a good job as acting attorney general. And now he's going to be ambassador to NATO. I don't think there'll be any objection to that. It's not going to have any confirmation problems whatsoever. We're still waiting on the big Secretary of Treasury appointment and OMB. Those are the two ones that I really, really care about, and we'll see how that happens. May not be today, maybe tomorrow, but you never know. It could be later today. Those will be the big appointments. Okay. Here's a story from German-owned Politico, right? Which is it's bizarre, but this German-owned company, Politico, has become the arbiter online of American political news. They've focused mostly in Washington, D.C. But this is an important story I wanted to chat about a little bit. Headline, Trump's immigration crackdown is expected to start on day one. In his first 100 days, President-elect Donald Trump plans to begin the process of deporting hundreds of thousands of people. This is a good thing. He's expected to end parole for people from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. You like that? Venezuela. I spent a summer in Venezuela when I was a kid in high school. I'll tell you about that a little bit more. And he is likely to undo a policy that significantly constrained deportations for people who weren't deemed threats to public safety or national security. Now, this whole parole, there's a special program, Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, Venezuela, where, you just have to fill out the app. They won't vet you and they'll bring in, it's ridiculous. This is why, Springfield, Ohio has gone from a population of 40,000 to 60,000 with 20,000 Haitians that came in under this program in the last couple of years. What could possibly go wrong? And by the way, our buddy Dan Foote, we've talked about this in Haiti. Haiti is basically ungovernable. It's run by gangs right now. And it continues to unravel. You heard that in the news today about that. But look, the good news is, if you're part of this program and you came in from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela on this, our buddy Tom Homan is going to find you. That guy's not messing around. And he'll find you wherever you are, and he'll arrest you, and he'll take you to a holding cell somewhere. Could be this 1,400 acres that the state of Texas just gave to the feds down in Brownsville, Texas. Or it could be your local jail here, Davidson County. And your next stop is a plane, probably be a military transport plane. And they'll take you and they'll drop you off in your home country. Now, it won't go to Cuba, I don't think, but it'll be Nicaragua, Venezuela. It won't be Haiti. They'll pop you in Nicaragua or Venezuela. Why won't they put you in Haiti? Well, because they're shooting at the airplanes in Haiti. It's just, Haiti, really, that's a shorter version of Hades, right? Hell. It's a hellscape there. It's been a hellscape for 250 years. And Dan Foote has an idea how to try to make it somewhat better. Dan Foote, former ambassador to Zambia, our good buddy, special envoy to Haiti, who resigned in protest of the Biden ridiculous policies. He says, look, don't try to impose something on Haiti. Let Haitians figure it out, right? But support what they want to do. That's the right way to go. All right, let's go back to this day one. I think it will be, so the inauguration ceremony is noon on January 20th. This in front of the Capitol. It's a big deal. And the Chief Justice, John Roberts, brings a Bible and the president is sworn in. I think all that will happen, and the swearing in happens first. So I think the swearing in ceremony will happen, it's supposed to be at noon, probably, let's say 12:05. And Trump raises his hand, and he's sworn in as the 47th president of the United States. Let's say that happens at 12:10. 12:10:01, Tom Homan is going to start deporting these people. He's going to do it. Here's more from that Politico story. Trump's team is already thinking about how to craft executive actions aimed to withstand the legal challenges from immigrants' rights groups, all in the hopes of avoiding an early defeat like the one his 2017 travel ban targeting majority Muslim nations suffered. This time, Trump may have friendlier arbiters. These fights will be refereed by a federal judiciary that he transformed during his first term, including by appointing 200 federal judges himself. Now, look, the whole travel ban that targeted majority Muslim nations was entirely legal, but you have these left-wing judges there. The way it works is, this is as predictable as the sun will rise in the morning and set in the evening. So the minute there's a signed executive order, all of the usual leftist groups and their usual attorneys are going to jump into the federal court system where they're most likely to get a favorable ruling, and that judge then issues a nationwide stay of the executive order. It happens like lickety-split. Last time it was this leftist judge in Hawaii that did it. Remember that? So they can do whatever they want. They can venue shop. It's not going to work out that well this time. It doesn't matter. They're going to go. They will be out. And look, you can't get them out soon enough. In addition to that, I think they're really going to focus in on these Tren de Aragua Venezuelans. They're trouble, and they're organized, and they're brutal, and their tactics are terrible. They're un-American. Got to get them out. And any city that's going to harbor Tren de Aragua criminals that have come in to the United States illegally, any local politician that defends them, even if they're Democrat, it's not going to go well for you. It's not going to go very well at all. So, look, I'm looking forward to this. And I mentioned I was in Venezuela. When was I in Venezuela? Back in the 1973, 72, 73. I spent like 3 months there. Beautiful country. Great. This was before it went all leftist. It's a disaster now just because they've got the wrong form of government. All right. When we come back, I promised that Kelly Conway clip. We'll play it when we get back. She let a Harvard student know that the Harvard student was not in the big leagues. Back after this.
Hey there, this is Lenny McGill, founder and CEO of The Glock Store. As a proud sponsor of this show, you may have heard Michael Patrick Leahy mention us a few times over the past 4 years. But today, it's me on the radio telling you how pleased we are to be associated with Michael Patrick Leahy and his dedication to the highest levels of professional journalism. Michael Patrick Leahy has been threatened with jail time in bringing the true facts about that Nashville Covenant shooting to his listening audience. Michael Patrick Leahy, you keep doing what you're doing, and we here at the Glock Store will keep sponsoring your show for the good of Nashville and the entire country. And I'm personally inviting all of your listeners to come visit and shoot at the Glock Store. It's where Michael Patrick Leahy learned to shoot a gun for the first time and where he bought his own personal Glock 19. I'm Lenny McGill, founder and CEO of the Glock Store here in Nashville, just minutes from the airports, worth the drive from anywhere, and a proud sponsor of Michael Patrick Leahy and the Tennessee Star Report.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
I promised that we would get to Kellyanne Conway giving a lesson to a Harvard student. We'll get to that in a bit, but this is some breaking news. And it's apropos of nothing, but it's an interesting story. Jay Leno, did you see this? Jay Leno had an accident, another accident. He's 74 years old, and he's still, doing his comedy routines and performing everywhere. He was in Pennsylvania, and he was walking somewhere, and he fell down a 60-foot hill, and he broke his wrist, and he banged up his eye. And, he's 74. Love Jay. There's something going on, though. I mean, he had a motorcycle accident, then he had a fire accident. His wife is dealing with dementia. This is just a bizarre accident. I think it would be an indication, Jay, maybe you ought to slow down your schedule and watch where you walk. I like Jay a lot, but it's a little bit disturbing, shall we say. He went on later that night. I don't know the details. He fell down 60-foot a hill in Pennsylvania. He had a show in California that night. He made that show. Okay, so I guess he, went to the doctor, got fixed up, got on a plane, and then flew to California and did his comedy gig. So we wish him well. We wish him well. All right, I promise this. We'll get to this right now. Kellyanne Conway. You see her all over the place, and she was a kind of co-campaign manager for the Trump campaign in 2016 when he won there. She's not really involved in the Trump campaign now. You see her; she's a Fox News contributor. She had a polling company for a long time. Some people say she's well known as a leaker of inside information. Some people say that. I haven't said that. I'm just saying some people say that. Okay. But she's very, very capable. And she was at Harvard University where, it was actually a master's student in public policy at the Kennedy School. And, what you do, if you want to be a left-wing, weaselly bureaucrat, you go to graduate school at the Kennedy School, and you get a Master of Public Policy. There's really nothing that you learn there except how to be a bureaucrat weasel. This is me talking, right? I had a lot of friends in college that went there, but that's where you go. And so she was there at the Kennedy School, and I think a first-year public policy student tried to ask her a question and posed the question in a certain way. Kellyanne Conway just obliterated her in her response. And here it is. It's a masterpiece, and well done by Kellyanne Conway. Here we go. Listen to the question. Listen to the response.
Thank you. Let's go over here.
Yes, ma'am. Hi. Thank you very much for being here. My name is Jane Peterson. I'm a second-year MPP student here at the Kennedy School. And I wanted to ask, since the last time you've been here was in 2016, I wanted to ask a question about your job as a White House spokesperson. In that role, you said things that were often pretty audacious, often caused people to question things that they have seen with their own eyes. And so I'm curious, in that role, I was always wondering whether it was a survival response in what seemed like was a very chaotic White House, or was it a strategy? So was it strategy or was it survival? You know, all the bantering with journalists.
Can you pause it right here? Okay, let's pause it. What a snotty kid. Oh, you said some things that were like inconsistent with reality. Were you just saying that to try to survive? I mean, who asked it? Well, a snotty Harvard student will do that, right? Now we're going to catch the rest of it. Got to listen to Kellyanne Conway's response. And this kid is going to say, I kind of wish I hadn't asked that question. Go ahead. Here we go.
It's survival, you know, all the bantering with journalists, the alternative facts. Was it strategy or was it survival?
Do you know what alternative facts meant?
I'm aware.
Can you please explain it for us? So tell the person who uttered it on her third Sunday show the day looking into a blank camera and then immediately said what I meant.
Well, we could also do other examples. I mean,
No, you can answer the question though. You have to be fair. You're not going to go back 8 years and do that.
Well, I asked you a question about your role in the White House.
You gave me two choices. You gave me two choices and they're both inaccurate.
So alternative facts, I'm assuming mean...
Oh, you're assuming. Go ahead. I've talked about it in many interviews. I wrote a whole book about it.
It's interesting that you decide to come here and know that you're going to be accepting questions from students, and yet...
Okay, so then I'll answer it. Thank you for your question. I gave you a good chance there, and it's a great chance for you because I don't need any more airtime. I get plenty of it. So I think your choices were survivor's response. That's rich. Or since you know nothing about me. Or banter. What was it? Something else silly.
I said strategy or survival?
Strategy.
Not survivor's response.
How about trying it? First of all, my job was counselor to the president. I said no to press secretary 42 minutes after President Trump was elected. He offered me that job. He said, you'd be great at that. I said, I would be terrible at that. I'm not even sure what they do. Some days I'm still not sure. Clearly I'm not sure after these 4 years. The border's secure. President Biden is behind the scenes. He's a trapeze artist and a triathlete. You just can't see it. So I hope you take these same concerns to the people who have lied to your face for 4 years in this administration, all the way to this crushing defeat of a sitting vice president who could have been the first female president of color in our nation's history, but instead had to eat and own all the lies that had been told by this administration. Alternative facts was very simple. I meant to say alternative information, additional facts. It wasn't George Orwell. It wasn't a new set of facts. And you can read my whole book. There's a whole chapter about it where I explain it. I don't defend it myself. I explain it. And if you want to be judged by 2 words in your life, it wouldn't take me much time to find those 2 words. But I don't do that.
Okay. Anyways, that's going to leave a mark, right? Because now, you see, in the olden days, before November 5th, 2024, when Donald J. Trump got an electoral college mandate and a popular vote mandate, where all of the lies of the regime media have been rejected by the American population. In the olden days, that kind of gotcha would have been all over the place. But it's not all over the place now. In fact, the exact opposite. In fact, we've got our friend Stephen Miller, who is the head of America First Legal. Let me just say, in full disclosure, I'm very partial to our friends at America First Legal. Why? Because they have been representing me and the Tennessee Star in state court here in Tennessee, where we're trying to get, and have been trying to get, Metro Nashville Police Department to follow the law and release all 1,000 pages of the Covenant Killer Manifesto, right? And where they have, in my view, illegally withheld that information on the pretense that there's an ongoing investigation. I mean, there's always an ongoing investigation. And it's just all an attempt to kind of keep these things from happening. My point is, so Stephen Miller has been representing us, his firm, his group, and we are thankful for that. But this guy is not messing around either. Let's talk about Stephen Miller and the agenda for Trump in 2025 Here we go, Stephen Miller.
The moment that President Trump puts his hand on that Bible and takes the oath of office, as he has said, the occupation ends, Liberation Day begins. He will immediately sign executive orders, sealing the border shut, beginning the largest deportation operation in American history, finding the criminal gangs, rapists, drug dealers, and monsters that have murdered our citizens and sending them home. No one will be allowed to enter the country illegally, and ICE will be empowered in partnership with FBI, DEA, ATF, the National Guard to fully seal and secure the border with CBP and to find and identify the criminal threats that are inside this country and send them back home. We saw that heartbreaking testimony, Sean. Laken Riley, that precious, beautiful young woman, fought for her life against an illegal alien imported by Biden-Harris for 18 harrowing minutes. She fought for her life. And we are going to honor that extraordinary woman. And we're going to honor every victim who has suffered. Under President Trump's leadership, we're going to honor that suffering by unleashing a righteous wave of justice and sending these criminal migrants back home.
Okay, there's a guy who's not messing around. Don't you like that? Tom Homan, Stephen Miller, we're not messing around. If you're illegal in the United States, bye-bye. You're going to your third world, you know what. I can't say it on air. Hey, when we come back, we got a terrific guest, James Irwin with Americans for Tax Reform. It's about the Tennessee broadband program. Government-owned networks trying to get into it. Why? What good could come from that? James Irwin after we get back.
My fellow Americans, I was this close, very close, to buying from the lumber yards. These are sick people. But I turned my head at the last second, and I saw a big, beautiful ad for D.T. McCall's. These are highly respected people. If I had not turned my head at the last second, I would have been ripped off at some lumber yard for $200 in hidden charges, and D.T. McCall and Sons are never going to do that. They'd never do that to you. These are great people. I've known them for a long time. They have great deals, and I just have to say, nobody knows deals like I do. D.T. McCall and Sons has locations in Lebanon, Carthage, Lafayette, Cookeville, and Franklin, and they have been family-owned in Middle Tennessee for over 100 years. These are tremendous people. D.T. McCall and Sons. Check out one of their stores today. Impersonator not endorsed by Donald Trump.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
We welcome to our Zoom newsmaker line right now James Irwin, a telecommunications policy expert who leads that area for Americans for Tax Reform in Washington, D.C. Welcome, James.
Great to be with you this morning. How's it going?
I was great. I understand that you worked for Susan Collins for about 4 years. Are you originally from Maine?
I am indeed, yes. Quite a few fine Irishmen like yourself up there, which is how I come by this delightfully red beard of mine. But yes, I grew up in Maine and began my career working for her on Capitol Hill for about 4 years, both when she was chair of the Aging Committee and in her personal office. And a couple of years ago, joined Americans for Tax Reform to continue advocating for liberty and limited government.
Where did you grow up in Maine?
So in the Portland area, a little town called Yarmouth, if you've ever visited Maine, which I encourage everyone to do, especially in fall. And if you ever go to the LL Bean store to take your photo with the giant boot, you'll drive right through my hometown on Route 1. It's called Yarmouth, and it's right next to Freeport.
Are you a University of Maine Bear, or did you go elsewhere for college?
I went to Bates College, which is in Lewiston.
Yeah, that's up in Maine, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't Joshua Chamberlain, the Civil War hero, go to Bates or Bowdoin?
He was a professor and president of Bowdoin.
There you go.
I think he went to Bowdoin too. Yeah. So,
well,
Bates was only founded in 1855, so he would have been too old to have gone.
Gotcha. Well, we're delighted to have you here, and of course, you know, Maine, a smaller state with a unique personality. Also, Tennessee, you know, a mid-sized state with a unique personality and no state income tax. You've got a commentary that we published at the Tennessee Star, very well done, about broadband programs showing promise. Here's the key. If government-owned networks can be kept out, what on earth do local governments know about operating a broadband network?
Well, they know how to undersell the private sector. That's about it. They know that if they take taxpayer money, they can charge less for the service. They can charge below market rates and basically bankrupt any competitor they have. This is something that's been going on, and Tennessee knows all about it for over 100 years. I mean, you think back to the Great Depression and the Tennessee Valley Authority, which is still around. I mean, that drove all of the private electric companies out of business. So there's this philosophy on the left that's been around for a while that if we the government, can provide services to people cheaper than the private sector can, and that itself is an inherent good.
Just stating it gives me a headache because
I know.
I mean, who would believe that? I mean, providing services, you know, the private sector knows how to do this stuff.
Exactly. And if you don't turn a profit, you don't have the money to pay for keeping the business going. You think about broadband specifically, you don't have the money for network upgrades. You certainly don't have the money for cybersecurity. As a matter of fact, the U.S. Cybersecurity Agency has even warned that government-owned networks run by counties and towns are a serious vulnerability in the U.S. network. And foreign actors are actually trying to hack into our network through these GONs, as we call them, government-owned networks.
The GONs should be gone, I think, right? Government-owned networks. Are there a bunch of municipalities, local governments here in Tennessee that have set up GONs, government-owned networks?
Well, so there's a bit of a movement nationwide to get more of these GONs off the grounds. I think it's really a plot to build socialized internet. Their poster child is from Tennessee. It's the Chattanooga Electric Power GON that's been around since about, I think, 2008 or 2009. And, conveniently, they've been around just long enough to get a cash infusion every time there's a financial crisis and a bailout package that passes Congress. And they always manage to get a slice of that pie. So they like to hold themselves up as the example of a successful god that didn't go bankrupt, that didn't go completely belly up. We've been around for 25 years. It's like, yes, but you've gotten $200 million from federal taxpayers that have come from outside of Tennessee to be an infusion. You're not turning a profit from your customers. What you've done is you've driven the private sector out of the area. You've scooped up their customers or made it very hard for them to maintain the customers that they do have. And you've basically saddled everybody with one-size-fits-all internet. And you've done the opposite of providing competition, not even long-term, just in the medium term. What you've done is monopolized the entire market. And the government should not be in the business of creating monopolies where they don't exist naturally.
So there's this bill that was passed. It's called the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program. And as they do in Washington, they turned it into an acronym. BEAD. BEAD, they call it, right? And there's a pile of money that can be used for block grants. And you have some advice for the state of Tennessee and other states on how to best take advantage of those block grants. Tell us about it.
So yes, we actually published a handbook of best practices that was distributed to a lot of state legislatures, including made its way to some folks in Tennessee. I think they read it because Tennessee's plan looks pretty good. Tennessee's done a good job of incorporating free market principles into how to award these block grants. The basic principle you want to keep in mind is don't give your money to government-owned networks because they don't respond to market forces. Don't regulate rates. Don't force networks to charge a certain amount of money for broadband service because, as we know from the last couple of years, inflation will change prices without changing the value of services, right? The value of the dollar will go down, and you'll have to raise your price just to break even, given the changing nature of things. And furthermore, some transparency about where the money is going and making sure that taxpayers are informed about how their money is being used. These three best practices, when incorporated into state broadband plans, will make your BEAD program really powerful and actually help you serve the people who are unserved, get broadband where it doesn't currently exist, which is the main focus of the program, or at least it should be. And it will prevent the major pitfall, which is a bunch of politicians turning this block grant into a slush fund to reward their friends and stand up networks that wouldn't exist otherwise. And we can tell Tennessee's done a really good job because, as we mentioned in the beginning, there are several government-owned networks in Tennessee, and most of them aren't even applying for Tennessee's block grant program, which is a good sign. It's a sign that Tennessee has put in strong guardrails that are going to keep out some of the least sustainable networks that are likely to waste the money. So Clinton tried to set up one, and its local utility board tried to set up one, but they decided against applying for a grant when they realized that they weren't going to be able to turn a profit or even afford the fiber they needed to build the network. There was a Humboldt bond that submitted an application and then withdrew it. And Harriman is currently applying for one, but apparently their initial cost estimate is 1/3 what it's going to end up costing. So the final cost is going to be 3 times what they estimated. So we'll see what happens with their application.
There are some state legislators, like the one in Harriman. I think Monty Frintz is up there, state rep. I think he's all for that. I look at that and I say, Monty, man, this is not what Harriman locals government ought to be doing. How do you respond to the local guy, the local state rep who says, yeah, this is a good thing?
I do understand the impulse. I do understand that, you think you're providing a service for the community, and not everybody is always 100% satisfied with their internet service provider. But what I would say is that long term, the people who have experience providing internet service know how to do it well, and standing up a new company out of nowhere and funding with taxpayer dollars is really a recipe for waste.
I got a curveball for you. You ready?
All right.
So this bill is called BEAD, broadband. But there's another way to get internet. It's called Starlink, right? Elon Musk put it together, and boom! I mean, during the floods of Hurricane Helene up in Western North Carolina and Eastern Tennessee, boom! They popped in our buddy Robbie Starbuck, bought Starlinks, got internet access via Starlink. Can a BEAD grant be used to establish Starlink service in a rural area in Tennessee?
Well, it should be, but it's not, and I'll explain why.
Okay.
So, as a Capitol Hill staffer, I was involved in negotiating this bill, and we had very explicitly come to an agreement between the Democrats and the Republicans who voted for the bill that it should be technology neutral. You should be able to get a grant to expand broadband using whatever technology was cheapest and most effective. When the Biden administration got their hands on it, they then imposed a bunch of requirements through the administration that were not passed through Congress.
Okay, this is the overreaching administrative state going through the regulatory.
Yes. And of course, it's all guidance in scare quotes. It's all guidance.
Right.
None of it's mandatory, but like obviously they're going to give you a different score and prioritize your funding based on how closely you align with their vision of doing things. And they included all of these provisions that had been explicitly kept out of the final agreement. Stuff Democrats had pushed for behind the scenes, but we had negotiated away or negotiated down from. And one of them was a preference for fiber. Fiber is really good in some circumstances. It doesn't work the best everywhere.
Yeah.
It certainly does not work the best when we're talking about Appalachia.
Mountainous areas, for instance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And, that was part of Maine's problem. The Appalachian Mountains end in the middle of Maine, actually. And so we have the similar issue. There are parts of Maine where that's just not going to work. So that is a challenge that a lot of states are going to have to find a workaround for.
But if somebody in Tennessee said, I want to get this BEAD grant and do Starlink up in this Mountain City, which is way up in the tip of the northeastern tip of Tennessee, that would make sense. Could they get that done if they wanted to do it using Starlink as opposed to fiber?
They could, but it would depend on the generosity, let's say, of of whoever's administering the program at the state level. So,
at the state level. Okay.
Yeah. So again, I think Tennessee's done a pretty good job of designing around these things, but basically you have to demonstrate that fiber can't work there, and then you can use a different technology. But one good thing I'll say about this program is that, for all the money that might be wasted, at the end of the day, if fiber is brought to a bunch of new homes and then Starlink is able to swoop in and also serve them just a year or two down the line, at the very least, that is preserving competition. So you're not going to have a monopoly of one or the other. You're going to have a consumer choice and downward pressure on prices, which should benefit everybody.
James Irwin, when are you coming to Tennessee to visit us?
Well, I'm hoping to go to Dollywood last year, and then I fell and broke my elbow just the day before I was going to go. So
you've been hanging out with Jay Leno too long.
Someday it's going to happen, but
have you been hanging out with Jay Leno? he fell and broke his wrist. Look, James.
More pathetic than that. I was just out running.
come to Nashville. We'll come in studio. We'll show you around, and we'll introduce you to a lot of the state legislators. How's that sound?
Fantastic. Let's do it.
James Irwin, Americans for Tax Reform, expert in telecommunication policy. James, it's fascinating discussion. Thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll have more when we get back. I'm Michael Patrick Leahy.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show.
And welcome back.
Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. You can follow us on X, Michael P. Leahy. Also, you can go to my our show website, michaelpatrickleahy.com, or you can read all of our news stories at Tennessee Star, TennesseeStar.com. We have a breaking story. The headline, Georgia judge finds illegal immigrant guilty of murder in the death of student Laken Riley. This is from Just the News. The illegal Venezuelan immigrant charged in the murder of Georgia nursing student Laken Riley was found guilty on Wednesday. Prosecutors said during the trial that the defendant, Jose Ibarra, age 26, who is linked to the Tren de Aragua gang, was, quote, out hunting for females, end quote, on February 22nd when he targeted Riley, age 22, while she was jogging. Ibarra faces life in jail without the possibility of parole. He was convicted on 3 counts of felony murder, 1 count of malice murder, 1 count of kidnapping with bodily injury, 1 count of aggravated assault with intent to rape, and 1 peeping Tom count. Well, life in prison for this guy? I think that this guy deserves a death penalty, don't you? We got that. It's a breaking story. Okay, let's go on to what we were going to talk about earlier. Have you been tracking all of this Federal Emergency Management Administration, FEMA, all of the bizarre going on there, and the testimony of the head, I think her name is Criswell, of FEMA. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who represents a congressional district in northwest Georgia, pretty much is done with all these weaselly bureaucrats. And we've got a clip of her as she begins to interrogate, if you will, or question the FEMA director who appeared before her committee. Here we go. Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Them. I know it may be hard to see from there, but this is a whole list of cities, states, and NGOs that received millions and millions of dollars from FEMA, and this was to house illegal aliens, not Americans, who, by the way, all that money right there, that comes from Americans' bank accounts when they write their checks to pay their taxes. Do you think it's acceptable for billions of American taxpayer dollars to be spent on housing people invading our country, but yet Americans in North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida are still homeless and have yet to fully receive support?
Congresswoman, we have been directed.
Is that equitable?
We have been directed by Congress to administer the Shelter and Services Program. If Congress chooses to change that direction, we will follow that law. Congress
is changing that direction, absolutely. We're going to put American citizens first, not migrants, because we don't believe that's equitable. You see, the situation, housing illegal aliens while Americans suffer with Americans' taxpayer dollars, that's not equitable. As a matter of fact, that's the biggest failure that could be ever done to the American people. It's such a failure, it should be treason. And that's how the American people feel. As a matter of fact, regular people are so outraged, they are pissed, furious at the fact that they feel completely failed by FEMA that's funded by their money, and yet their own money went to house illegal aliens that have invaded this country. Americans are dead today because of the failures of our border, and FEMA took care of these people. You see, we can't allow that to happen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Okay, so let me go into that just for a moment. This Criswell person is definitely a Weasley bureaucrat, and there was a way to answer that. The proper way to answer that. Well, there would have been some action to take. So it is true that FEMA, which is supposed to just handle emergencies, natural disasters, and help American citizens, back in, I think this would have been 2023. Yeah, 2023. In March of 2023, they had one of these omnibus budget bills. 3,000 pages. You got to pass it, or the government will shut down. And the leftists had slipped into FEMA like this $800 million to aid and assist illegal aliens. Now, that doesn't belong in FEMA. That's not part of the mission of FEMA. But the money was approved in that budget. It shouldn't have been approved in that budget, but it was. And so there was that money. And there's a program that FEMA has been administering. And what they'd said was, well, we don't have enough money here in this other bucket to deal with with our core mission. Now, what Criswell should have done, the FEMA administrator, said, look, Congresswoman, I really appreciate that question, and I think we did make a mistake here in this regard. Congress did authorize us to do a program that was not in our core mission. Now, that is a problem created by Congress. And as you know, it was because it was slipped into the last minute of the omnibus budget. That's how it works. Now, I can only act within my authority. And now the correct answer would have been, yeah, that was a mistake. We had the money for these illegal aliens. And under my authority, I could have said and should have said, you know, we're going to stop spending that money that's been authorized for the illegals. And we're going to put it back to our core mission. And we're going to tell Congress that's what we're doing. But she didn't do that. Why didn't she do that? I'll tell you why she didn't do it. Because at her core, she agrees with that mission and with Congress. She doesn't think that FEMA should be restricted to doing its core mission. Now, FEMA is beyond a disaster. And I think we've got enough time. Let's play this. Clip 20, the testimony of the administrator here.
Who is her supervisor?
I don't know specifically who her supervisor is. I know that there's this individual, Chad, that has in her supervisory chain, but I don't know if that was her specific supervisor.
Okay, let me just stop. She's going to testify before Congress. And this whistleblower had come out, got fired. The one that said, don't go to Trump houses, said, well, it was my boss that told me to do that. So she's testifying before Congress, and the Congresswoman is asking a very logical question. Well, who's her supervisor? I don't know. You don't know or you don't want to know. You should know. Come on, man, as somebody once said. We'll be back with Carmichael in the Tennessee Bonus Hour. After this, I'm Michael Patrick Leahy.